The email came through while I was half watching a game on TV, sipping my beer and trying to forget that the past few months had been a living nightmare. My name is John, 32 years old, and until recently, I thought I had it all. Good job, solid, friends, and a relationship that seemed like it was going places. But that was before she left. Before the one person I trusted, the one person who was supposed to be by my side, did something so cruel I couldn't even begin to wrap my mind around it. I'd never expected it to happen. It wasn't like we were perfect, but I never thought it would end this way. We had been together for 3 years and we'd adopted a dog together not long after moving in. His name was Max, a scruffy little terrier with more personality than any dog I'd ever met. He was mine and hers. He was our family. He was a symbol of everything I thought we had. So when I opened that email and saw the subject line regarding Max, my stomach dropped. I assumed it was just another one of her angry messages, some rambling about whatever argument we had before. But as I read on, I realized something that shattered me to my core. The email was from a woman named Emily. She claimed she had just picked Max up from my ex, Sarah, and that he was now in her care. Emily said Max had been listed for sale on Craigslist for $100. She attached a screenshot of the ad right there, plain as day. Max's picture, the description reading, "Free to a good home. 2-year-old terrier, very friendly, needs a new owner." I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. How could she? How could Sarah Mike sell my dog like he was some unwanted item? Like he meant nothing. It wasn't just the betrayal of our relationship that stung. It was the thought of Max, alone, without me, with a complete stranger. The thought of Sarah thinking it was okay to give him up for a few bucks hit me harder than anything else she'd done. She had no right to do that. Max wasn't just a dog to me, he was family. And she took him from me. I sat back in my chair, numb as the realization sank in. This wasn't just some petty breakup. This was a violation. A cruel, unforgivable act. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just going to let this slide. I wasn't going to just move on or get over it. No, I was going to make her pay for what she did, for taking Max from me like he was some trash she could discard. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be about just getting my dog back. This was going to be about making her face the consequences of her actions. And if that meant hitting her where it hurt the most financially, then that's exactly what I would do. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. For Max. And for me. Before everything went south with Sarah, things were, well, good. We were a solid couple. We met during college, both studying in the same program, communications and media. She was funny, outgoing, and had this incredible smile that would light up a room. We clicked instantly, spending hours talking about everything from our favorite movies to our future goals. For a long time, I thought she was the one. We'd even started talking about getting married. We'd built a life together a little. Home, our jobs, our friends, and it all felt like it was falling into place the day we decided to adopt. Max was one of the happiest moments of our relationship. We'd gone to the shelter on a whim. I wasn't expecting to find a dog that day. There he was, Max, sitting quietly in the corner, his big brown eyes looking up at us as if he knew we were the ones he'd been waiting for. He wasn't a puppy, but he had a certain charm. A little rough around the edges, but endearing. For some reason, when I saw him, I just knew he belonged with us. We both agreed right away he was coming home with us. Max quickly became a part of our family. I spent hours playing fetch with him in the park, and Sarah would spoil him with treats every time I wasn't looking. It was a good dog. Loyal, playful, and like me, a bit stubborn. That's the thing about pets. They have a way of becoming part of your life in ways you never expect. They become more than just an animal. They become your companion, your family. Max was more than just a dog to me. He was someone I could always rely on, someone who would greet me at the door after a long day at work. Always there to comfort me when I felt low. But over time, things between Sarah and I started to shift. Little things at first, misunderstandings, disagreements, frustration. We'd get into arguments over the smallest things, and it felt like the love we once had was slowly draining away. It wasn't just one thing that broke us. It was a series of things. We stopped communicating the way we used to, and suddenly, everything felt harder. The spark we once had was gone, and we both knew it. We tried to fix things, but the more we tried, the worse it got. And that's when Sarah made the decision to leave. She packed her things, moved out, and took a part of me with her. I still didn't expect the betrayal that would come next. In the months that followed, I tried to adjust. It wasn't easy living alone for the first time in years. I missed Sarah, but more than that, I missed the life we'd built. I wasn't prepared for the loneliness. But through it all, there was Max. He was still here, still loyal, still the same sweet dog who would curl up beside me at night, never judging, always there when I needed someone. Max had been my anchor, my constant during the storm of the breakup. And that's why when I saw the Craigslist ad, when I realized that Sarah had taken him from me and sold him to some stranger, it felt like a knife in my chest. It wasn't just the dog. It wasn't just Max. It was everything Sarah and I had, built together, and everything she'd destroyed without a second thought when she left. I had let her go, hoping one day things might get better. I had accepted the end of our relationship, even though it hurt like hell. But when she sold Max, when she ripped that last piece of my heart away, I knew I couldn't let it go. Not this time. I thought back to everything she'd put me through. The lies, the manipulation, the way she'd always used me. She'd taken advantage of my kindness for far too long. But selling Max, that was unforgivable. She had no right to do that. She thought she could break my heart and walk away untouched. But she was wrong. She needed to understand that actions have consequences. This time, the consequences were going to cost her, emotionally and financially. I was done being the one who always forgave, the one who let things slide. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to let Sarah get away with treating me and Max like we didn't matter. That's when the plan began to take shape.
Oh.
I was going to make her pay for what she'd done. Not just for selling Max, but for everything else she'd ever done to hurt me. It wasn't going to be quick or easy, but I was prepared. Sarah was going to learn the hard way that there were consequences for betraying someone who had loved her with everything he had. The first step was figuring out exactly what had happened to Max. I needed to know where he was and who had him. Sarah wasn't going to give me any answers, and I wasn't about to sit around waiting for her to confess. So, I took matters into my own hands. I reached out to the woman Emily, who had posted the Craigslist ad. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to try. When she answered the phone, I could hear the hesitation in her voice. She wasn't expecting someone like me to call. "Hello," she said, cautious but polite. "Hi, Emily. This is John. I'm the guy who had the dog you just picked up? The terrier? Max." "Oh, you must be his owner," she replied, sounding surprised. I didn't know you'd be calling. I just saw the ad, and Sarah seemed pretty eager to get rid of him." "Sarah?" I repeated, my voice tight with anger. "You mean my ex?" "Yes, that's right," she said. She was very upfront about the situation. She said she couldn't care for him anymore and wanted him gone. Mentioned something about you two breaking up, and it was just too much for her to handle. I clenched my fists. So, this wasn't just a simple case of rehoming him. Sarah had actively sold him as though Max were a piece of property to discard. "Did she say anything else?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. She seemed kind of rushed, honestly. Just wanted him out of her hands quickly, you know? She did say you could call her if you wanted to discuss it. I took a deep breath. I'm not interested in talking to her. I just need to know where Max is. Emily paused, clearly uncomfortable, but then gave me the information I needed. She mentioned the neighborhood where she'd dropped Max off, gave me a rough description of the people who had taken him in, and then ended the conversation with a polite good luck. I didn't waste any time. The next morning, I drove to the area where Emily had left Max. It was a quiet, suburban neighborhood, with rows of houses that looked identical to one another. As I parked a few houses down from the one Emily had mentioned, my heart raced. The thought of Max being so close, but still out of my reach, made me furious. I walked up to the house and rang the doorbell. A woman in her mid-40s answered. "Hello," she said, eyeing me with suspicion. "Hi. I'm looking for a dog I believe you just adopted," I said calmly. "A terrier named Max. My ex gave him to you, and I need to talk to you about him." She immediately stiffened, stepping back and glancing over her shoulder. "Max, you say?" "I don't know anything about that. We just adopted a dog a few days ago from a woman named Sarah, but we didn't get his name." "I'm his owner," I said, my voice firm. "He's been with me for 2 years, and I've been searching for him ever since my ex sold him behind my back. I need him back." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Sold him?" she asked, her tone softer now. "That doesn't sound right." "Sarah said she was rehoming him because of some personal issues, but I had no idea." "I'm sorry for the confusion," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "but I need my dog back. I didn't agree to any of this. Max isn't just a pet, he's family." The woman hesitated for a moment. I could see the gears turning in her head as she processed everything I said. Finally, she sighed and stepped back from the door. "Go get him," she said, without another word. I waited, standing there, my emotions swirling in my chest. I couldn't believe I was in this situation. I couldn't believe Sarah had sold him, had broken my trust like this. She had no right. Max was mine. And now, I was going to do everything in my power to get him back. A few minutes later, the woman returned with Max in tow. He looked up at me, those familiar brown eyes locking onto mine. His tail wagged slightly, and I could see the recognition. In his gaze, I crouched down, and Max bounded toward me, jumping up and licking my face like he had never been away. My heart ached, but there was a sense of relief that washed over me as I hugged him tightly. He was safe. I had him back. The woman watched us, clearly moved by the reunion. "I'm really sorry," she said, her voice soft. "I didn't realize all of this. Make sure he's not going anywhere." I stood up and thanked her before I turned to leave, Max in my arms. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't help but smile. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The hardest part was just beginning. I had Max back, but Sarah, she was going to pay for what she did. She was going to pay dearly. I still had to figure out how to make her face the consequences. How to make her understand that her actions had real repercussions. And that's when the plan started to take shape in my mind. I wasn't just going to ask for Max back. I wasn't going to play nice. I was going to make Sarah pay for the emotional damage she caused me, for the pain she put me through, and for the betrayal she made. I was going to do it in a way that hit her where it hurt the most. I was going to make her pay $10,000, with Max back in my arms. I felt a mix of relief and rage. The feeling of having him home, curled up beside me once again, was priceless. But that didn't change what Sarah had done. She'd crossed a line that I couldn't ignore, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I spent the next few days plotting my next steps. I knew I had to be careful. This wasn't just about getting my dog back. It was about making Sarah pay for the emotional damage she had caused me. I couldn't let her think she could walk away from everything Max, me, our shared memories, without facing the consequences of her actions. The first thing I did was gather evidence. I wasn't about to approach Sarah empty-handed. I kept a log of all my communications with her, texts, emails, and the conversation with Emily. Every piece of the puzzle was crucial. I knew she wouldn't just admit to what she had done, but I had something she couldn't deny: the Craigslist ad, the direct evidence of her betrayal. Next, I reached out to a lawyer. I wasn't planning on a lengthy court battle, but I needed some legal advice on how to proceed. After discussing the case with the lawyer, I was even more convinced I had the upper hand. In the state I lived in, emotional distress caused by someone else's actions could be grounds for a lawsuit. And when it came to Max, my emotional support, my companion, this was not going to be something I took lightly. It didn't take long for Sarah to contact me after I sent her a message, demanding a meeting. She was probably expecting me to beg her to return Max or apologize for whatever she thought I'd done wrong. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me grovel. We met at a coffee shop, her face already flushed with annoyance. As she sat down at the table, she crossed her arms over her chest, staring at me like she was about to dismiss me altogether. "John, I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. Max is fine, and he's better off with Emily," she started, her tone dripping with indifference. "You're being overdramatic. I thought we'd agreed to part ways and move on." "Part ways?" I asked, my voice low but firm. "You sold my dog, Sarah. You didn't just move on. You took something that was mine and treated it like some object you could toss away." She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off, pulling out my phone and showing her the ad. "This is the ad. You posted, 'This is how you discarded Max like he was nothing. Don't try to act like you didn't know exactly what you were doing.'" Her face paled, and I could see her trying to come up with a lie, some excuse. But I wasn't letting her off the hook this time. "I've been through enough, Sarah," I said, my voice gaining strength. "You broke me when you left, but I could have forgiven that. I could have moved on from that. But this is unforgivable. You didn't just break my heart, you broke our family. Max was mine, and you didn't even have the decency to talk to me before you made this decision. You didn't even think about what you were doing to him." I let that sink in for a moment before continuing. "And now I'm making you pay for it." Sarah raised an eyebrow, clearly not understanding the gravity of the situation. "What do you mean by that?" $10,000, I said, leaning forward. "That's how much you owe me. For the emotional distress you caused. For the pain you inflicted on me and on Max. I'm not letting you get away with treating me like this." Her expression twisted into one of disbelief, then anger. "You can't be serious. You're going to sue me for emotional damages over a dog? Are you out of your mind, John?" I stayed calm, not letting her dismiss me. "It's not just about the dog, Sarah. It's about the years we spent together. It's the trust you broke and the complete lack of respect you showed. It's about the fact that you thought you could do whatever you wanted with no consequences. Well, there are consequences now." She laughed bitterly, the sound grating on my nerves. "You're pathetic, John. Do you think I'm just going to hand over $10,000 because you're upset? You think I'm going to cave to your little tantrum?" I didn't flinch. "We can either settle this the easy way, or we can go to court. I'm prepared for either, Sarah. But one way or another, you're going to pay. You don't get to destroy someone's life and walk away without facing the consequences." She sat back in her chair, glaring at me with a mix of anger and disbelief. But I could see the cracks forming in her composure. Didn't want this to get out. Didn't want the public exposure. The embarrassment of being known as the woman who sold her ex's dog without remorse. "I'll give you the money," she said after a long pause, her voice sharp. "But this isn't over, John. You'll regret this. Promise you that." I stood up, smiling coldly. "We'll see about that. But for now, you'll get the message that no one gets to take something from me without paying the price." I walked out of the coffee shop with a sense of finality. I had Max back, and I was getting the justice I deserved. But Sarah? She wasn't going to get off so easily. The twist in all of this was that she thought she could scare me off, so that she could throw her tantrum and have the last laugh. But now, I held the power. I was going to make sure she never underestimated me again. The days after our confrontation were a whirlwind. Sarah's anger seemed to boil over, but I could see the fear behind her bluster. She hadn't expected me to actually follow through on my demand. She didn't think I'd take her to court, that I'd push her to the edge where she had no choice, but to pay up or risk everything she cared about. But now that the wheels were in motion, there was no turning back. I gave Sarah 1 week to settle the matter privately. I knew that dragging this out in court would only cause more drama, but I wasn't going to back down. The ball was in her court now. She could either write the check for $10,000, or she could face the full force of a lawsuit that would destroy whatever reputation she had left. It wasn't just the money I was after. It was the principle. I wanted her to understand the impact of what she had done, and while I knew that no amount of money could truly undo the emotional damage, it was a start. It was a way to make her feel the consequences of her actions. But after a few days, I started getting the feeling that Sarah wasn't going to go quietly. She was always stubborn, and I knew her pride wouldn't let her just accept this without a fight. Sure enough, I got the call. It came early one morning, as I was sitting in the kitchen with Max curled up at my feet. The phone rang, And when I saw Sarah's name on the screen, I almost didn't pick up. But I did, against my better judgment, John. She said, her voice tight. I'm calling because I'm not going to let you do this. Can't force me to pay you $10,000 over a dog. This is ridiculous. I stayed calm. You've already made your choice, Sarah. You sold Max without. Even considering how I would feel, you broke my trust, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I don't have that kind of money, she spat back, and I'm not giving it to you. I'll fight this, John. I'll make sure you regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I wasn't swayed. You can fight it if you want. But just remember, if you go public with this, it's only going to make you look worse. You've already lost everything, Sarah. This is your chance to make it right. The money, the reputation, the guilt, it's all in your hands now. The line went silent for a moment, and then she sighed, defeated. Fine, she muttered. I'll pay. But don't think this is over. I didn't say anything else. I knew the game was up. She wasn't going to drag this out anymore. The emotional toll I had endured, the way she had treated me, was finally being balanced with a price. I had one. The check arrived a few days later, sealed in a plain envelope. I opened it, my heart pounding. The amount was exactly what I had asked for, $10,000. My stomach turned with a strange satisfaction. This wasn't about the money. It was about accountability. It was about making sure that Sarah understood that her actions had consequences. And no one was untouchable. I deposited the check that afternoon, but I didn't feel the need to celebrate. There was no victory dance, no sense of triumph. Max and I took a walk through the park, just the two of us, with the sounds of the city in the background and the weight of everything that had happened still lingering. But in that moment, I didn't need anything from Sarah. I had what mattered most. Max. The dog who had always been there for me. The dog who had been taken away and returned to me. And now, the dog who was finally home. What Sarah had done to me selling Max, betraying me, thinking she could take everything away, had nearly broken me. But it didn't. It had only made me stronger. And in the end, she had shown me her true colors. She wasn't the woman I thought she was, and I was better off without her. Max nuzzled his head against my leg, and I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in months. There was no more animosity, no more hatred, just a man and his dog walking together, stronger for what they'd been through, and that was enough.